40 different towns or communities that are represented here, and about 10 or 11 denominations that are represented here. And so we're really grateful for the ways that you're coming together in this Zoom conversation. And we know that we're going to be missing those moments between workshops, during coffee breaks, during breakfast and lunch, when a lot of the real work happens, building relationships with one another and connecting with one another, sharing ideas and challenging one another. And so we're trying to build in little moments of like that. So like that trio time, and some of the workshops will have space for that. But we recognize we're not going to be fully relational like we'd like to be until we're able to meet in person. So I'm grateful that you're making the best of it and making connections. So the rest of this 10 a.m. space will be hearing from Reverend Kevin Bates, and then we'll hear some music from Judith, and then we'll be moving into our workshops. And for this morning, our workshops will be 2 giant breakout rooms. And so we're trying different ways of doing Zoom, so you don't have to leave the room and come back through a different Zoom account. You'll just be moved over to your workshop, and you have the choice this morning of discerning next steps in creation care, or climate change and faith with Deke Arndt and Kevin, and a climate scientist and a pastor. And so if you haven't already shared with Susan what your preference is, you can chat with her now and just share. Is that okay, Susan, for me to go ahead and ask that? So
yeah, that works great.
She's building a list now of who she's going to send to which rooms. And so if you can just chat to Susan Bean, which room you'd like to go to, climate change and faith, or discerning next steps, or you could just say next steps or something like that for the other one. And then we'll be moving into those around 11 o'clock. Hi, Judith. Good to see you. Or you see your words there. So that's kind of the trajectory. And then from 11 to 12, you'll be under the care of your workshop leaders. And just to give you a rundown of the rest of the day, at 12 o'clock, we'll finish our time together, and you'll have a 3-hour break to maybe go for a walk, to have some lunch. Maureen Linneman, could you raise your hand, Maureen? She has provided meditations in the PDF. You should have that in your email, that you're welcome to do to embody some of the work that we're doing. So she has 2 prayers or 2 meditations that are fairly active and interactive for both of our lunch times. And then at 3 o'clock, you'll have Zoom links to join your individual workshops for this afternoon. And then at the end of those, so we'll start in 2 spaces, and then we'll come together for a gathering to do some debriefing and conversation from 4 to 5. So that's the general feel. It's 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and then we'll do the same kind of rhythm tomorrow. And we're trying this out. We have different kinds of doing retreats and symposiums, and this is our rhythm for this time, and we're excited to experiment, and hopefully that will be a doable amount of Zoom time. We encourage you to drink water and to stand up and shake it all about if you need to keep yourself sane as you're looking at the screen. My eyes are just dancing all over looking at your faces, so I know it must seem weird for you, but it's because I'm seeing all of your beautiful faces. So very grateful. Maureen's asking about the morning workshops page, and when we'll get a screen up about that a little bit later before it's time to choose. Kevin Bates, are you available to share a little bit with us before we move into our music?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So thanks, Scott. Well, as I thought about the themes for this symposium of sort of sacred lands and sacred bodies, I was reminded of a time when I stood beside a newly planted apple tree in my yard. And there I watched my daughter grin and pick and eat a sweet red raspberry straight from the bush. Not even 2 years old, she already knows the difference between the unripe red blackberries nearby and these juicy morsels. 2 years ago, I began this process of converting my front yard into a garden. It's a garden of summer vegetables, root crops, and perennial fruits. Now I watch in complete amazement and wonder as she runs all throughout the garden, all smiles towards this strawberry patch to taste more of the garden's abundance. As she sinks her teeth into a juicy, warm strawberry, I'm reminded of the way that food stitches us together in a vast web of relationships. Imagine, for instance, the last strawberry that you ate. Do you know where it came from? And I don't mean just the grocery store. I mean, do you know who grew it, who transported it? Do you know what insects pollinated its flowers? Or what microbes nourished the soil that made such a delicacy as strawberry possible? From fungi and soil to farm workers and animals, our food tells a story of relationships. Today, many of us are unaware of what it takes to grow and preserve or prepare our food. And this disconnect allows us to be blissfully ignorant of the stories behind our food. For instance, in order to produce the year-round cheap strawberries that most of us see in our grocery stores, conventional strawberry growers have to dump large amounts of poisonous gases and pesticides onto soil to eradicate weeds and to get rid of pests. And such practices degrade the soil, harming animals, farm workers, and consumers. This is one story of our food. But the strawberry that my daughter now munches on tells a different story. It communicates a story of once depleted soil now teeming with life due to compost and chickens and worms. It tells of the nearby legumes which fix nitrogen and nutrients into the soil, and of beautiful marigolds which attract pollinators and discourage insects that might harm the strawberry plant. In short, the strawberry that my daughter eats tells a story of interconnectedness, of companionship, and yes, if you looked at her smile, even delight. Whenever we reduce food into some sort of cheap commodity that we consume to fuel our bodies, we eventually forget that food is a gift to be cherished. Food is a gift because we are always dependent on the presence and participation of others. From sunlight and water to pollinators, farmers, and cooks. But the gift of food is true on an even more visceral level. For us to live, we must eat. And when we eat, something else must die, whether animal or plant. And no, if you're vegan, you don't get out of this too. All of us, when we eat, something else dies. And it's this holy mystery that life requires a self-offering hospitality of making space for the other. And this is true not just of the eaten, but of the eater. Whenever we eat something, it becomes a part of us, literally intertwined into the very cells that constitute our being. The two made one. Is there anything more holy and intimate than this? It's little wonder we often share the mystery of eating with friends and loved ones around a table. Because eating is a daily reminder that God creates and animates the world through self-offering love. Our bodies are joined inextricably to food and to soil and to the bodies of other living creatures through this communion of love and hospitality. We are a meshwork of interconnected relationships. And because of this, there is a profound similarity between the way we treat human bodies and the way we treat the rest of creation. The failure to love and therefore neglect or abuse the one is always to harm the other. This is simply another way of saying what Genesis 2 says. something that comes from the Hebrew scriptures, that God formed from the soil the human being and every living creature. The very name of the first human, Adam, marked by his intimate connection with the Adamah, the Hebrew word for soil. In this creation story from the book of Genesis, God's hospitable love pours into a material world, making space for all that is not God to be and to flourish. We learn from a sacred garden that God, the very first gardener, creates a world of interconnected beauty and goodness, and then invites us to join with God in delighting over it, which is what my little toddler gardener is doing even now as she picks sugar snap peas and gently pushes a few uneaten peas into the soil. Whether she knows it or not, she's participating in a sacred, cosmic act of faith and worship. All that she sees around her in the garden has intrinsic value because God makes and sustains it. The earth is not a commodity or a container of resources upon which the human drama unfolds. Rather, like the food in the garden, all of creation is a gift to be cherished, for it is the embodied expression of God's love and delight. And this means that bodies, whether human or animal or plant, all bodies are not merely the object of God's love, but instead they are the material expression of God's love. And this includes the strawberries and raspberries that have left a red stain on my daughter's mouth and fingers. As one theologian puts it, food is God's love made nutritious and delicious. It's God's love given for the good of each other. You know, I know that these last few months have been really difficult for all of us. And it would be easy, maybe too easy, to simply just despair in hopelessness or to write off the world as no longer good. I get it. The sheer immensity of the challenges facing our world can make us forget that everything we see around us is a gift of grace. Every person, every animal, insect, and plant, all of it made good. Every bit of it an expression of God's love inhabiting time and space. And so this year, when we eventually round the corner into spring, and we will eventually round that corner into spring, I will once again take my daughter into the garden to grow, to sow, to plant, to water, and to eat. Because I want her to taste and to see that this world that God made is still good. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kevin. So I invite you to continue to send your preferences to Susan. And as we're doing that, Judith, I wonder if you would begin to get ready to share your song with us. And I know you have you would like to say something about that song as well. I wonder if people would be open to just texting or using the chat box here on the bottom if you're on a computer, sharing what community you're from if you'd like to, and maybe something that you are grateful for. We're going to be talking about we do base ourselves in gratitude. We'll be talking about suffering and the challenges that we see around us. We'll be moving into trying to see with new eyes, and then into hopeful action. And so that's kind of the breadth of how we live in the world. And but we do seek this sense of gratitude. And you've already shared a little bit with your trio. But if you have time to put it in the chat, that would be maybe interesting for us to be able to see each other more fully, to just know what who you're with and what you're grateful for. And then Judith will be getting ready to share a song, and then we'll be moving into our workshops. Susan Preston's from Grace Covenant Presbyterian and Circle of Mercy in Asheville. Gratitude for Kevin's reflections. Grateful for this group. Interfaith Chaplain. Maureen's from Jubilee. Claudia is from the UU congregation in Asheville, and grateful for tech that brings us together. Rita's from Blowing Rock, Rumpel Memorial Presbyterian Church. Grateful for the opportunity. Judith, are you ready as we continue to read?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. I wonder if you would go ahead and share the introduction piece, and then we'll be glad to listen. And then we'll have a little bit of time to make sure we're going to the right place after Judith shares. And we're very grateful that you're coming to us from Boston,
Where it's snowing. World Prayer Day, a poem by James Cruz. While people all over the world chanted and prayed for a miracle, we stood in the woods with binoculars trained on a pair of bluebirds, flitting from branch to branch, tiny chests puffed out in the chill morning air. And for those few moments, mud frozen beneath our feet, and not a single golden leaf stirring on the beech tree. I did not think about a virus entering my body after turning a doorknob or shaking someone's hand or touching my own face. It was as if those two bluebirds became part of us, freed at last from worry, our tufted lighter bodies now lifting higher and higher, like words meant for whatever God might still be listening. That's World Prayer Day, written in March by James Cruz. Birds are healing for us. We can also be healing for them. The piece I'm about to play for you is a traditional Catalan Christmas carol called The Song of the Birds. The beginning lyrics go something like this. At the sight of the great light dawning in that glad night, small birds come singing to celebrate with their sweet voices. And even the imperial eagle, soaring on the wind, sings a melodious song. Today, for me, the great light dawning symbolizes the hope I'm feeling at the beginning of this new American chapter. We're back in the Paris Climate Agreement. Hallelujah. It's a good start. In the 14 verses of the song, over 30 more birds are described expressing their joy at the new day. I'll list for you just a few of the birds that are mentioned. Feel free to close your eyes and imagine how hopeful they would be if they knew that they're being given yet another chance to survive. Sparrows, thrushes, nightingales, redstarts, wrens, larks, blackbirds, doves, woodpeckers, quails, cuckoos, partridges, magpies, jays, goldfinches, owls. The Song of the Birds.
Thank you, Judith. You're getting a lot of hand waves and silent claps. We'll be hearing from Judith again this afternoon and tomorrow morning as well. So I want to remind you, we'll be moving into our 2 breakout rooms now, Climate and Faith with Deke Arndt and Kevin Bates, climate scientist and pastor, talking about the science and ramifications of climate change. And the other is with Martha Frame and Scott, looking at how your congregation or community might discern next steps for creation care. And if you want to take a break, I would say go get to your next room and then just turn off your camera, and then you can jump up and wiggle around a little bit before the workshop will start. So we'll just ask everyone to kind of wait until 11:01, because there are some people that are just coming to the workshops. So we'll wait to start. And then you'll have that 12 to 3, you'll be free to move about the cabin, and then we'll come back together for our next 2 workshops at 3 p.m. Eastern time. I know there are people all over the US here. So that's a little bit about what we're doing. Susan, am I forgetting anything else?
Yeah, if I may hop in. Folks, I have assigned many of you to a workshop room, depending on whether you sent to me a form in the last couple of days or have expressed a preference in the chat. Many of you I don't have a workshop assignment for, so feel free to chat me if you have a workshop that you would like to be in. And then lastly, I would say, if I send you to the wrong workshop, A, please forgive me, but B, you should be able to, in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, click on a red button that says Leave Room, and that will send you back into sort of the limbo space where I will be, and then I can redirect you to the other workshop room. So if you end up in the wrong place, please feel free to just click on that Leave Room button, and don't leave the full meeting, just leave the room, and then I will be able to redirect you. And if you have questions, please email me. I'm susan@mountaintrue.org, and I'm very happy to help you get to where you need to be, but bear with us, it might be a little tricky. That's all I have, Scott.
Great. Well, have a good morning. We'll hear how it went this afternoon.
All right, I'm going to open the rooms, and many of you will be sent to a new place. Have fun.
Hey, Susan.
Hey, Geek.
Hey, I'm here. It is really cold. I'm going to go grab a sweater. I'll be right back. All right.
Okay, I will put you in your breakout room, which is Climate
Okay.
and Faith, and I'm going to make you a co-host before I send you away.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. For those of you who are still in this limbo space, I apologize. That means I have not put you into a workshop room. If you would like to be in a workshop room, either type it into the chat for me. Anna, your dog is adorable. Or feel free to unmute yourself honestly and let me know where you would like to be, and I can send you there.